right, hello everybody. Welcome to the 2019 Staff Development live stream for adults. If we could get some confirmation in the chat if you are able to see all of this, that would be awesome. Or see and hear, just to make sure that we're hopefully. I am going to. Oh, my dad's here. Says he can hear and see well. Yeah. Let me make sure we grab that. So welcome everybody. This is a new medium that we're trying to experiment with Academy this year. Is the idea of a live stream. So this is a little different from our standard form of like a phone or a conference call in our case, which is kind of geared towards discussion. A live stream is much more focused towards trying to give out information to a group of people. So in this case, you'll realize that Mary only hears music. That's interesting. I would recommend trying to refresh Mary. Yeah. So in this case, there's not really a way for you to physically speak back to us as audience members in this case. There's not really a way to have that kind of a conversation. What we do have is kind of the chat that Sam's been trying to get people to actively use, and we have a bunch of people who have started using it, which is awesome. So for us, that's going to be one of our main ways of getting feedback from all of you is, writing something in the chat. If it's a question, we can respond. If it's kind of an answer to something, if we ask you a question, you can answer there as well. We'll show you in a couple minutes, but we also are trying a couple of survey things. So once we get to those, Sam will post a link in this chat and you'll be able to click on it and fill out the short survey, and we'll kind of look at the results in real time. So this is kind of a medium that isn't normally conducive to kind of real conversation, but we're going to try to do our best to make sure that you don't feel kind of isolated from what we are doing as an audience member. So with that, we're going to kind of get started here. And I guess the best way to start would probably be to talk about who we are. So to start off, my name is John Kazakis. I am the Senior Patrol Leader for the Washington, D.C. course for Academy. My contact information is here on the slide. There's a number of ways to get in contact with me, but we'll make sure that you have some way of contacting us afterwards. I'm really excited to do a couple of newer things this year, like these live streams, along with some shifts in how we're handling staff development and our preparation for the course. And I'm here with my friend Sam. Let me try again.
Hey, can everybody hear me now? It looks like people can hear me now.
All right.
So yeah. I'll reintroduce myself. I'm Sam Leiterman Long. I'm the Director of Program Instruction. I work with all of the courses from a national level to coordinate the syllabus, to coordinate program and training, and to kind of work overall to think about how we train our staff members and how we run our program. I'm excited to be here. This is a huge step up from when I started doing staff development in 2008. So this is a great way to get to talk to all of you.
So with that, we're going to kind of try to do our first survey here. So Sam is going to post a link in the chat, which you should be able to click, and it'll open a new tab in your browser. It's through a site called Mentimeter. It's just something we're trying out. But basically, for this specific survey, which we're asking about, why are you excited for Academy this year? We're primarily looking for a couple of words to kind of describe how you're feeling. So I'm going to pull it up right here, and I'll kind of fill it out along with all of you. So here's the Mentimeter. This is hopefully what shows up on your computer when you open it. What are you most excited for at NYLT Leadership Academy 2019? And it's asking you to enter a couple of words. So I'll enter, fun. I'm always excited for some hard work. And then maybe I'm always looking for some enthusiasm, so we'll say enthusiasm. And then you can click submit, and we can see the voting results. Hang on. Oh. Leadershipacademy.org.
So I like what we're getting so far. We've got several servant leadership responses. We've got a really big, fun sort of word here. I gotta say, late night snacks was my choice. I appreciate late night snacks. New adventures, learning with friends. This is all things that I think you share with our youth staff.
Yeah, absolutely. For those that aren't aware, we did one of these live streams about a month or so ago now, a little over a month, for all of the youth staff for this year to try and get them ready for all the pre-course work we were going to be doing. So we asked them a very similar question. I think it was actually identical. What are you excited about? And so far, a lot of your answers seem to really mirror what they were saying, which is obviously great. It really shows kind of, even though you haven't really interacted yet this year, it shows kind of how similar the youth and adult staffs are for both of these, which is really cool. There we go. Open it up, probably stuff. What else are we seeing, Sam?
Let's see, what else am I seeing? I'm seeing a bunch of meeting new people, patience, which I think is a great thing for an adult staff member to have, networking, couple mentions of friendship, sharing my experience, which is a huge part of what adults do on course. They share their experience with the youth staff members. Let's see. Something new. Hopefully, for those of you that are new to our program, we are something new. We're a little bit of a individual type program in the VSAs, so I think you'll be interested in what we bring to the table. So all of those are great things that I'm seeing here, and great course reputation, which I would hope that we have a great course reputation. So we're looking forward to having all of you help us build that.
Awesome. So on that note, all right. On that note, we'll kind of continue along. Thank you, everyone, for kind of participating in these surveys. It's what we've determined to be one of the main ways we actually get to hear from all of you and your thoughts on what we're saying, what we're talking about. So we're really excited to hear that you're all excited for Academy this year, since that's one of the biggest things we have going into it, is that we're excited about it, and that's really just going to dramatically improve the quality of course that we're running. So next up, we wanted to talk briefly about the vision and mission of the NYLT Leadership Academy, and Sam's going to start us off with the vision here.
Yeah, so the vision and mission are important to what we're doing because they help us understand kind of what our global goal is. So the vision of the NYLT Leadership Academy is to instill each participating staff member with the confidence, knowledge, and inspiration to deliver superior NYLT courses in every council, thereby reaching all scouting units and in turn impacting every scout. And we often say that every scout should have a trained leader, and that doesn't just mean adults, that means youth also. And so we really are looking for that global, that sort of national reach in terms of training youth to really lead their peer counterparts.
Absolutely. And that kind of and vision and mission for a lot of organizations obviously being very closely tied together. The mission is a lot of that and a little bit more. It is the mission of the NYLT Leadership Academy to provide each council with the opportunity to participate in an effective world-class youth leadership training program. The Leadership Academy staff is dedicated to infecting each participating staff member with an enthusiastic force of learning that will instill in them a growth experience lasting a lifetime. This goal will be accomplished through the establishment of a special place where learning and mutual respect are fostered within the ideals of scouting. And obviously, that's a lot of words, and it says a lot of things there, but the really important parts here are the fact that we're all about being an extremely high-quality youth leadership training program run by youth, and we have a lot of goals in terms of what we want our participants to get out of it, because this is something they only get to do once, and it should be something that helps them grow throughout their life, not just for the week that they're at our course. And this kind of ends up taking form in the shape of the program that we've constructed over the past, how many years has it been? 12-ish years, maybe?
I think we're at 13, if I'm not mistaken.
13 years. So over 13 years, this vision and mission have shaped a program that hopefully reflects what they say.
So I think it's really important to talk about the intentionality Academy program, right? And so the first part is that the NYLT course, as you hopefully all know, is based very specifically off of the life of a troop. And now that we're sort of getting into more inclusive scouting, we look at the life of a unit. And the NYLT Academy course is based off of the life of an NYLT course. So what we're modeling for an entire week is the epitome of what an NYLT course should look like. And so you'll see mirrored in our structure this underlying structure of what the NYLT course should look like, because that's what we're trying to model as sort of a course that trains the trainer. The second part, and I think this is incredibly important, is that we're based on a cyclic feedback structure. So the entirety of the course works in a circle. So every evening you hear from people on a specific topic, whether it be presentation styles or whether it be stages of team development, and then you develop a presentation, you deliver that presentation, you get feedback, and then you get an immediate opportunity the next evening to put that feedback into practice. So you get delivered another presentation, you develop another presentation, and you give it again the next morning. So there should, in the best of worlds, be a 24-hour loop where you're receiving and then implementing feedback so that that process of learning happens over and over again. And so these are kind of the two core pieces of what our program looks like.
And so those are kind of what the program was kind of based around. Let's turn the vision and mission into something practical. What does that look like? And how do we take those things and what does it end up turning into when we're actually running a program? And that takes the form of the daily schedule that we have in our program. So this list here that I'll go through in a second is reflective ultimately of what happens pretty much every day at the Leadership Academy. There are 3 days in particular, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, where this is the exact schedule. It happens in this order, exactly as shown. And then other days like Wednesday, the other 2 full days, Wednesday and Friday, are variations of this with slight changes just because Wednesday's our hike day, Friday's kind of the end of the course, so some things have to shift a little bit around. But that daily schedule, in the morning, we wake up, we have a flag ceremony. After that, we go to breakfast. Following breakfast, we have morning presentations run by the participating staff. So they've all received content the night before. This is their opportunity to reproduce that content in their own presentation. After that, we have lunch. In the afternoon, we have a Skymaster Forum, an SPL workshop, and then an afternoon activity. After all that stuff in the afternoon, we'll have dinner. Dinner's followed by a guest speaker on most nights, which is really cool. It's an opportunity to kind of hear outside of the program. And then following the guest speaker, we have the nightly presentation. So this is the participating staff receiving content to duplicate for the next morning. And then we have an evening activity, and then there's some work time / bed kind of built in with Cracker Barrel there. And so most days will follow a very similar structure to this, with the intention of kind of repeatability. So we talked about the cyclic structure. The hope is, having gone through this cycle many times throughout the program, it's a cycle that you may be able to take and bring into your own life. That idea of consistently implementing feedback, because that would provide them with an opportunity during their NYLT course to say, something happens on Wednesday and they're able to make some changes, implement some ideas, and kind of change things up for Thursday. And that kind of a skill set can be really important for NYLT staff members. Now, there's a lot that goes into making a program like this run. There's obviously a lot of components throughout this daily schedule, and these are all handled by a variety of different people. So we're going to kind of talk about the different positions that we have at the Leadership Academy, and we're going to start with the youth positions. So very simply, this kind of ends up as 3 positions. So there's the Senior Patrol Leader. So for the Washington, D.C. course, that's me this year. For the St. Louis course, that's Mitchell Clokey. And for the Los Angeles course, that's Daniel Magnuson. And this is kind of the head youth. It functions in a role very similarly to NYLT. So it's the head youth that kind of handles the course overall, makes sure that everything is running smoothly. And they have, in our case, 2 to 3 assistant senior patrol leaders working with them. So Washington, D.C. has 3 assistant senior patrol leaders, and St. Louis and L.A. both have 2 assistant senior patrol leaders. And they're much more responsible for kind of the minute by minute of the course and making sure that everything is running smoothly, everyone has what they need. And then overall, the people with the boots on the ground, so to speak, that make most of the program happen from the youth side is the patrol mentors. So this is the Leadership Academy equivalent of a troop guide from NYLT. So they're assigned to a patrol for the week. They work with them. And they're ultimately responsible for a lot of kind of the engagement with the participating staff throughout the week. And so the youth handle a lot of the program, especially down at the participating staff level. But the adults also handle a lot. And so there's a few positions there that we really wanted to make sure we gave a brief description of.
Yeah, so the sort of hierarchy of positions goes as follows. So there's a course director, and that course director is global for sort of an overall, they're responsible for sort of overall picture, right? So they're thinking about administration, they're thinking about program, they're trying to bring those 2 sides together. They're trying to understand how the administrative and sort of on the ground logistics work supports the program. So they're kind of the overall person who guides the course. Working with them is the Scoutmaster, who is entirely devoted to programmatic needs. So the Scoutmaster's whole job is to work with the SPL and to have a conversation about where's the program at, how are we doing, how are we working as we continue, and then how can we move ourselves forward? Are there problems we need to address? Are there things that adults need to do to address youth needs? Things like that. Now, working with the Scoutmaster is what I think is the most important position from an adult side, which is the assistant Scoutmaster position. Because the assistant Scoutmasters really are the counterparts to our patrol mentors. They work with our patrol mentors and ASPLs to help run the evaluation process, and we'll talk about what that looks like. But they're also just sort of the adults that are there to provide whatever sort of support is needed. So sometimes that support means that there needs to be sort of the person who comes in as the heavy and helps understand how to sort of work on discipline and work on scouts that are not exactly doing what they're supposed to. Sometimes it means that they're the voice of wisdom because they've seen a lot of situations in terms of leadership and they can help deliver that message. Sometimes it means that they just are a sounding board so that the PMs can talk through a problem that they're having. So they really sit in this position where their main role is to work on the evaluation process, but their more global role is just to be support staff, to really support the PMs and work with those. And speaking of support staff, the most important people, sorry ASMs, are the quartermasters because their job is to feed us. So the quartermasters are working with us to make sure that food arrives on time, to make sure that if we need any physical materials, they're providing those to us on a regular basis, and to kind of just make sure the whole course runs from a logistics, things that we need to fuel our bodies and fuel our program side. So that's really the 4 main pieces. There's some other people that do important work, but programmatically, those are the 4 sort of main groups that are working. And Deborah says to remind us that the quartermasters are in charge of the pickled eggs, which is a crucial part of any academy experience.
Absolutely. And now uh, our youth live stream was really focused on what the patrol mentor is responsible for, being making up a majority of the youth staff. And similarly, this live stream is really going to hone in on the assistant scoutmaster role, since in terms of the adults that'll be at camp, that'll end up making up the majority of the adult staff. And on the youth side, the assistant scoutmaster is probably the role that's noticed the most by the patrol mentors, since, as we'll talk about, there's a big tie-in between the assistant scoutmasters working with both the ASPLs and the patrol mentors, the PMs. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the responsibilities of the assistant scoutmaster are. The assistant scoutmaster is. So the biggest one that we'll talk a lot more when we get to course about is the idea of writing letters. So assistant scoutmasters will end up observing a patrol each morning when they're giving their presentations, and they'll work collaboratively with the patrol mentor of that patrol to end up writing letters that the participants will receive the following morning, offering some potential feedback to them. And this is one of the main ways that adults end up being able to engage with the participating staff on a really a content-based level, is being able to provide feedback through these letters. And that's not really something that we're going to worry about during this talk here. We're going to more focus on some of the other responsibilities and what kind of everything looks like overall. But writing letters ends up playing a big role. A classic one that's in literally every person's job description for Academy is being a role model. We're a model NYLT course, and as such, we don't want to just be a role model in terms of, behavior and typical scouting things like representing the Scout Oath and Law. We also want to be a role model for the position that we're holding. So, as a senior patrol leader, I really want to make sure that I'm a role model for what we'd want their NYLT course senior patrol leaders to look like. And so being that role model, in this case for the assistant scoutmaster, is also really important, since it can sometimes be really difficult to find good role models for an assistant scoutmaster within a council, and them getting that experience while they're at our program is going to allow them to go back to their council and maybe bring something new to the table. The last 2 points are talking about consistent communication, and that's something that we really talked a lot about with our patrol mentors this year. Is consistently communicating is kind of a backbone for really making everything in our program happen. I can say from my experience that almost every issue I've dealt with on a course in terms of staff members working together and making things happen, they've all been tied to some form of problem with communication. So this year we're really trying to place a focus on consistently communicating. And for the assistant scoutmaster, that's with a couple of key people. So consistently communicating with ASPLs and other adults about observation and ideas that they're noticing throughout the course is really important, since that keeps everyone informed, and groups can kind of make informed decisions about what needs to be happening. And then consistently communicating with the patrol mentors that they'll be working with about their observations, potential feedbacks, and also those letters that we've been talking about is really going to allow the patrol mentors to go through that same cyclic process that the participating staff are, and really improve as the course goes on.
I think that one of the things to remember about being an AM, which I've gotten, thankfully, a couple opportunities to do, is that you sort of produce one piece of work every day. Well, 4 pieces of work. You produce 4 letters. But that production is the result of a process, and that process has an enormous effect on the course. So having an ongoing conversation with the ASPLs and with the patrol mentors about how the course is going and how they're doing and how their participants are doing has an incredible effect on their thinking about how they can help their participants and how they can help their participating staff. So I think it can get frustrating as an ASM, because as a background support person, your work isn't really seen, but it is felt in the way that patrol mentors are able to do their job when you go through that process with them, so that they can really understand and internalize and work on where they are at and where they want to go. So that's a good thing to keep in mind, that almost the process of talking about getting to the place where you write letters that get delivered to someone is almost more important than the letters themselves, because they really give crucial feedback to everybody involved in the process.
Absolutely. And now we've talked a little bit about the responsibilities of an assistant scoutmaster, and since we have more than just the assistant scoutmasters here, we wanted to make this question a little more general. But what questions do you have about being an academy staff member? This could be pertaining to your role. This could be more general ones about what it's like being an adult on the academy staff. But we want to make sure that you're specifically taking away information that you really want to hear about from this. So answering those questions is going to be one of the ways we do that. So Sam posted the link like he did with the last one. So clicking on that should lead you to a page asking you to enter a question, in which case you can kind of post it, and then Sam and I will be able to see it, and we'll kind of talk about it. If you have any issues with completing the survey or following the link, just let us know and we'll try to resolve it.
Okay, so let's see if I can get into our results. I'm having a little trouble, though John, you may have access instead.
Let's try. Looks like I am having trouble accessing it as well.
Gotta say, this hail in DC is just playing havoc with my internet life. It's unfortunate. Give me a second. I'll try to approach it a different way.
Okay. In the meantime, if people wanted to post a couple of their questions in the chat here, we'll definitely take them from there, and that'll give us something to answer while Sam works on pulling up the collective responses. But yeah, any questions you have about being an academy staff member, we'd love to answer them. Jim Bob says he didn't see the survey. I will copy it and paste it back in.
Perfect. So we've got a good conversation about how many, I think, PMs, Scoutmasters, and PMs, ASMs, and patrols. Yeah, so that's a great question about how we staff. Mm-hmm. So patrols depend on the number of participants we have. The governing rule is that we try not to have more than 4 members in each patrol. The reasoning being that each of our topics every night is split into 4 topics. And so it's hard when you have to repeat a topic for a presentation in front of someone who's already seen a presentation on that topic. It also, in the timing of our schedule, works out better if we have 4 people that are presenting at one time. Mm-hmm. So if you have a course of 48, we're going to strive to have 12 patrols. I will say there have been times we have gone over that, but we really, really strongly believe that 4 people is the important amount of time, amount of people for the participating staff in a patrol. So then when we look to get ASMs, we need to have enough ASMs to staff our patrols. So general guideline there is if you add up the ASPLs and the other staff members, you should have the number of patrols you have. You should be somewhere close, because writing letters is a lot of work. And so if you have more than a patrol and a half to write, that's really difficult. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what you're looking at. For PMs, we look for about 1.5 PMs per patrol. So a single PM is perfectly able to work with the patrol, but it's nice to have sort of an extra set of people to either double up with a PM who might be newer and might need guidance. So if you have 8 patrols, you might look at 12 PMs. You might look at 8 plus another half, which would be plus 4. So that's kind of what our staffing looks like there. John, you want to answer Elaine's question because it's a really good one.
Sure. So Elaine asked how collaborative are the interactions between PMs and ASMs. Now, the traditional answer to that is that the ASM each morning is going to receive an assignment as to which patrol they're working with, which is going to indicate which patrol mentor they're working with. And there will kind of be communication in the morning and a little bit in the afternoon, evening surrounding the letter writing process. And that was kind of the extent of it. But last year in St. Louis and this year in all of our locations, we're really pushing to make the interactions in general, between youth and adult staff much more extensive and hopefully impactful by that. So what'll end up happening is throughout staff development and then throughout the week, you'll have numerous opportunities to be interacting with, as an ASM, interacting with a patrol mentor or other youth staff member. And that could be surrounding how the course is currently going, something you noticed. It could just be chatting for the sake of chatting, but we're hoping to kind of make those interactions much greater and much more collaborative. So hopefully you feel like that answers your question. But that'll definitely be something you'll get a better feel for during staff development, which is going to be geared a little bit towards kind of structuring those interactions and kind of encouraging them before we actually get to the program itself.
So, two more questions here. First of all, what are the Scoutmaster? We've introduced, I'm finalizing the list of Scoutmaster Forum topics probably tomorrow. So I'll send out a list. Off the top of your head, skipping Be No Do, which is the one that we took out, what are the Scoutmaster Forums every week, John? See if you can do this one.
Oh, geez. So there's the special place Scoutmaster Forum on the first day. So kind of introduction to Academy. The other Scoutmaster Forums. Oh, God. I mean, it's been like 5 years since I've been to one.
So there's the one at the end that you can think of. Right, one that looks at that. We're adding a mentoring one this year that's going to help. A styles of leadership one. There's a servant leadership one, which Jeff just mentioned. That's the styles of leadership one that happens. So those are all Scoutmaster Forums. We're going to give a couple more options this year for Scoutmaster Forums. So those are going to go out ASAP so that we have them. Two more questions, and then I think we want to move on. First of all, what's different on hike day? The main thing on hike day is that we go on a hike. Seems like maybe it should get some elaboration. So we typically leave in the morning, and our morning presentation time happens at the hike location. So for DC, that means that our presentations happen on the National Mall. For St. Louis, that means that our presentations happen, they've been at a variety of places. We were at Forest Park last year, and we did them in the park or in the zoo. I know they've been at the courthouse before, and they've been at the area around there. So wherever your hike location is, that's where you'll do presentations. And then typically, we work on having some presentation space at our hike location. That's not always worked out. Sometimes we've gone our regular camp location to do final presentations. But in DC, for example, we often do our PH staff presentations in the Capitol building. So we often find space to do that. So it's mostly just a mix up of venue. The whole goal of Hike Day is to get participants out of their comfort zone, to put them in a situation where they need to innovate, where they need to do something different, where they need to deal with distractions, where they can use the skills that they're developing in a new way so that they start pushing the boundaries of what they've started to become good at.
Absolutely. And then the final question we'll kind of chat about here. Jeff asked, is there anything I need to do to prepare or have completed for course/pre-course? So that's specifically something we're going to talk very briefly about at the end. But in general, the requirements I'm talking specifically about Assistant Scoutmasters at this moment. In terms of things you'll need to prepare, it's mainly going to revolve around if you are assigned a Scoutmaster Forum, having that prepared to potentially do somewhat of a trial run with our youth staff during staff development, but really to make sure that you're as ready as possible going into staff development and you can kind of focus on other things rather than trying to plan out what your Scoutmaster Forum might start. And we'll see if it picks it up.
I'll be fresh.
Yep, it looks like it's grabbing it. Interesting. Looks like it should have it.
Ah, so we're back, it sounds like.
Yep. Oh, I just got an email from AC.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Sorry about that. Technology things happen.
I'm not sure if we dropped in the middle of my sentence or John's sentence, but just to recap, what John said is that there's not a ton for you to do, but we might ask you to participate in the way that the PMs are preparing, the presentations they're doing, and if you have a Scoutmaster forum assigned to you, you might want to work on that. What I was saying is that I will be sending out a copy of the syllabus with the recording of this live stream, just in case no one has it, and we'll work from there. It sounds like we're dead again.
Really?
Yep.
It's registering on my end as still there. Let me check something. Copy that. I don't know why it's doing
We're still there for some people.
Yeah, mine's not showing that we're having any drops now. Should still have a good connection.
Okay, we're gonna keep going forward as best we can. Keep telling us if things are going wrong for you. We'll do the best.
Yeah. I'm going to switch regions again, Sam. Hopefully that works a little better. Okay, so we're going to kind of jump back into things. Hopefully you all are able to stay with us. Question we just got, who attends the Skymaster Forum? That'll almost entirely be participating staff and maybe a couple of other adults. None of the youth staff are present for Skymaster Forums. It's kind of an opportunity for adults to directly interact with the participating staff and really make sure that there's kind of a connection being built there and that they're getting some experience and a little more comfortable with interacting specifically with adults, because that's a really key part of an NYLT course is being able to interact with the adults you're working with, and that's one of our ways of building that experience.
Yeah, and one of the things to remember is that the PMs are almost 24/7, except when they're sleeping, in front of their participants. So there are very few times when they get relieved of the ability to have participants with them. So the Scoutmaster Forum is one of the very few times when another adult, and actually not a youth member, takes responsibility for those youth participants. And so we tend to try to rescue them for a little bit and have them get that face-to-face time with ASMs, because there's not a lot of time where they have that.
Yeah, that's a great point. So at this point, we're going to kind of move into what we're calling a day in the life of an assistant Scoutmaster. So this is typically going to be, or this kind of segment is all about, going through that 12-piece daily schedule that I introduced earlier and talking about what that looks like for an assistant Scoutmaster. What are the responsibilities during each part of it? So to kind of start off, wake up / flags. This kind of seems a little straightforward, but arriving on time to flags and being prepared, we call them shenanigans. Anything that the adults might be involved with. For a Scoutmaster, it's the Scoutmaster Minute. For an assistant Scoutmaster, maybe the adults are doing a little bit of a small skit at the opening ceremony, and being prepared for that is really important. Following wake up and flags, we're going to have breakfast. And during breakfast, all the adults are going to kind of be visiting and engaging with different patrols. This could be the patrol that you're going to be working with throughout the morning that you'll be assigned to observe, but it could just be any patrol. And the important part there is kind of encouraging what obviously should be appropriate conversation, but making sure that these youth are really engaging with all of these different people that we have at this course, because once they leave after the week, that's not really going to be something they get to do anymore. It's just having those people around to be able to talk to and get to know about. So encouraging conversation with yourself and other visiting adults and potentially senior youth staff is going to be a really key part of them getting a well-rounded experience. Following breakfast, we're going to have the the participating staff presentations. This is a huge chunk of the day, 2.5 to 3 hours. And ultimately, your responsibilities can fit in a really small kind of paragraph here, but they're kind of broad in what they encompass. Setting the example as an audience member of the presentations. So you're going to be there for the presentations. They're going to notice you being there. So making sure that you're attentive during it and that you're participating if they're asking questions is going to be a really key part of them kind of successfully engaging with you and you getting the best information you can out of your experience following them. We just got a great question pertaining to this specifically. Each morning, following breakfast before the P-Staff presentations start, there will be a meeting between ASPLs and ASMs that'll specifically detail what patrol you're assigned to for the day and things like that. So that'll be when you're finding out which patrol you'll be working with and be able to prepare for that.
I think it's good to note here that checking in with the PM that you're going to observe is useful because some PMs are going to be in a spot with their patrol where they really want their adult staff member to sit back and observe solely because that's what they need to be doing at that time. Some PMs are going to be in a spot where having some adult feedback might be useful. And so getting in touch with them and saying, what's the best way for me to participate today? Do you want me to participate today? Do you want me not to? Is a good way to know kind of what's going on in this patrol and how am I best going to be an audience member here? And the PM will have a good sense of what that looks like for you.
Absolutely. And then the other half of that experience is you're there to kind of see the presentations, and you're also going to want to be making sure you're observing and taking notes on how things are going, whether it's the person that's presenting or the people that aren't presenting and are observing, and kind of take notes on that in preparation for the letters that you'll end up writing. So these are going to be potential spots of feedback, things like that. So you're going to make sure that in some capacity, if you're comfortable with it, it could be mental notes, but we definitely recommend some form of physical note to make sure you remember what you're going to be wanting to talk about in those letters. Following that, we have lunch. Now, what you'll notice is that all the meals are kind of similar here. So you're going to be encouraging appropriate conversation, encouraging conversation with other people. And then a key difference for lunch is that now they have that experience of those morning presentations under their belt. So you could potentially encourage reflection about how the morning presentations went. We often recommend that that you sit with the patrol you observed in the morning for lunch, and that gives you an opportunity to kind of do an informal debrief with them. Hey, these are things I saw. I thought this morning went really great. How do you guys think today this morning went? And getting kind of their perspective on it is, again, going to contribute to that letter writing process you're going to have to do later in the day. Now, after lunch, we have that Scoutmaster Forum and SPL workshop. So not all of the adults are going to be at every Scoutmaster Forum. It's going to be one or two. It'll definitely be the person running it and maybe kind of a backup person to be there as kind of assisting with whatever needs to happen. But while that's happening, we have a daily meeting. So that meeting's between ASPLs, ASMs, and PMs. So you'll notice that the Scoutmaster's not there for that. The SPL's not there for that. This is something that's kind of handled at that the next tier down in the hierarchy is kind of like, how's the day going? What did we notice this morning? What are things we need to be doing? Do we have any participating staff that are standing out for one reason or another? And we really want to make sure that we're focusing on them for whatever reason. And then kind of following that meeting, it's an opportunity for you as the ASM to work with the patrol mentor and potentially an ASPL as well about what you observed in the morning, what your thoughts are on what you'd want to write about in a letter, and kind of get their perspective on what's been going on so that at that point you're kind of ready to go and write a letter and you've communicated effectively with them so you know that what your intentions are something that they agree with. Following all of that, those two kind of activities and what you'll be doing during then, there's the afternoon activities. So afternoon activities are a few things. There's so day one, there's team building games, there's geocaching, RFA, realistic first aid, and then there's challenge games. So these are all basically opportunities for them to maybe burn off a little energy and also learn about potential things that they are probably doing at their program and kind of our take on them and how we're doing it, hopefully give them ideas to improve their own. So during that, you could potentially observe the afternoon activity. You want to know more about RFA, feel free to check out the RFA presentation that I believe happens on Monday. Check that out. And it's also our most recommended part is it's an opportunity to really work on letters. So sitting down, being able to start getting the draft of those out and making sure that you're kind of on track. Because our ultimate goal is that those are done by the end of the day so that the participants can receive them in the morning. After the afternoon activities, we have dinner. Dinner, again, much of the same in terms of meals, but now we also have the afternoon activities, whatever that was, and also Scout Master Forums and SPL Workshop. Those are all done as well, so it's an opportunity. Maybe you ran the Scout Master Forum for that day. Hey, what did you all think of this Scout Master Forum? Get some feedback for yourself. Try to engage them a little bit and what their learning has looked like for the day. After dinner, we have a guest speaker, and the really key part here is setting the example as an audience member. This seems pretty straightforward, but this is something that we always seem to struggle with. This is the point in the day where there's a lot going on, and we really want to make sure that we're ending the day well, and it can be really easy to lose focus of what's going on. But we want to make sure that we take, the half an hour that it's going to take to really set the example in terms of being an audience member for the guest speaker and giving them the respect they deserve having come out to talk to us. Now into the back third of the day, this is kind of the last of it, there's the nightly presentations. For ASMs, we're going to have all of them observe and evaluate the nightly presentations that go on. It's an opportunity for our youth staff members who are giving the nightly presentations to receive feedback on it. So we're going to work with you during pre-course on, what our evaluation method looks like, get you some practice with it, and we're going to have you utilize our evaluation form to evaluate these nightly presentations and give them some feedback. This is also an opportunity to be working on letters, even though I didn't write it here, since that's going to kind of be something you work on throughout the day until the end of the day. After that, there's the evening activities. So that includes our opening campfire on Sunday. We have problem-solving panels. We have a participant campfire. We have an interfaith worship service that happens on Tuesdays. So there's a bunch of different things, and this is kind of rounding out the evening, try to get a little bit more content in, but also help them get a little bit of energy out, just get through the end of the day. And this is an opportunity as well to continue working on letters if it's something like the problem-solving panel, which adults are typically not present for. Finally, at the end, we have Cracker Barrel. Kind of similar as always. This kind of ends up blending in with work time and bed a lot. It's not usually something by itself where you're going to go and sit with a patrol and you're just going to be eating and hanging out. But potentially, you're going around, maybe they're starting to work on their presentations. You could offer to help them if they need it, but you could also try to engage them in some conversation about how the day went for them. What are they thinking about for their presentation? Try to help them spark some ideas potentially. And this is also the time where you want to be finishing your letters and letting your patrol mentor know that you're all set with them so that they know in the morning they can get them and they'll be able to hand them to their patrol members with no issue. And then this is a little bit more important for the youth who are really bad at this, but we want to make sure you get to bed at a reasonable time. These are really long days. They typically end up being 14-ish hours in terms of end to end. So we really want to make sure you're getting to bed at a reasonable time. There's no need to stay up late and just hang out if you don't have a specific reason to do so. You definitely need to get some sleep to be able to keep doing this over and over in that cyclical process that we talked about earlier.
Man, the next time I pull a 14-day hour at Academy, I'll let you know, John. They're usually 18.
Yeah, I know.
But hopefully for you all, they'll be 14. I do want to say one of the things that I think is really important to think about in this whole process is that differently from a lot of places, adults are either peers or working for their youth counterparts. And that's the goal that we aspire to, is that adults are working to serve their youth counterparts. It's not always the strategy or the structure that we see in other places. And youth may not entirely know how to tell you what they need because they're used to adults being sort of higher up in the hierarchy than them. And so a lot of your day is spent sort of trying really hard to listen to what do youth need and how do I manage to give good help and to be an adult who has really specific skills and a lot more experience in general than my youth counterpart, but also let them make mistakes and let them work through their own strategy and let them tell me a little bit what to do in what they need. And that can be difficult. So being graceful and being flexible in listening to youth and saying, you know, I know that you're trying to tell me what you need, and that can be a hard process. And so, not to alarm anyone, we'll all get through that. But from the adult side, I think the ASM position takes a lot of grace. It takes a lot of ability to kind of have to roll with the punches and hear what youth are really trying to say to you when they don't always say it exactly the nicest way possible. Um, and so I hope what you're hearing in the ASM's job is a lot of observation and a lot of listening, because that's a huge piece of your job.
Mm-hmm. And at the same time, that's often the part we stress the most about it. But in recent years, we've tried to stress more the part of as a contributor to kind of the conversations that are going on. A lot of the problems we've run into in the past with adults is that we don't really give them as many opportunities as we should to be able to contribute and not just be a listener. And so that's why a lot of the time it's, engaging with the participating staff when you're at meals. It's engaging with the ASPLs and PMs when you're at that meeting in the afternoon. It's not just, sitting there and observing the meeting or kind of just hanging out at meals. We try to make you an integral part of it and not just a person that's present. And that's kind of our goal there. But Sam makes a great point with that.
And what we communicate to our youth staff is that adults are staff members that have unique skills and talents that are different than the youth staff members' skills and talents and can be incredibly effective in important scenarios. So their job isn't going to usurp the youth staff's job. Their job is going to support and strengthen because they have different skills. And those skills can be used in service of doing some things that youth staff aren't always able to do. So yeah, it's a huge point.
Absolutely.
Do we want to move on to recruitment?
It's probably a good idea.
So this is just a reminder that if you need to make that last push at your council or in your area or in your region to really recruit some people, now's the time to say, hey, it's the beginning of June. What are you doing this summer? Do you have a week to spend at the academy to strengthen you, to strengthen your course, to strengthen your college resume, frankly, to do all of those things? So we just wanted to kind of drop a friendly reminder of what are we, how are we recruiting people, and can we make that last push?
Absolutely. As kind of a response here, Jeff asked, is it possible to get a better description of what Scoutmaster forums actually are? What are you going to be preparing for? So Sam mentioned that he's going to be sending out the updated version of the syllabus to all of you in the coming days. The syllabus has much more in-depth descriptions than something we could give for things like Scoutmaster forums. So it'll not only detail what the topics are, but also, what do we look to accomplish with the Scoutmaster forum. So I'm going to kind of encourage you to look at the syllabus when we send it out to you about what it is, and then definitely come back to us with questions if there's anything you're not sure about with it.
Yeah, in general, it's an opportunity for the Scoutmaster to deliver a presentation, and that presentation can be varied just in the way that our youth presentations can be varied. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that's a collaborative activity. Sometimes it's more of a straightforward sort of lecture mode with some feedback. Sometimes it's a discussion. It varies with the identity of the Scoutmaster. So we're going to give you some structure. We're going to give you a topic. We're going to give you some points to make. We're going to give you research background. But it's up to you to have an idea about how you want that conversation to go. Mm-hmm. And whether that's sort of a straightforward presentation conversation or whether that's a discussion that you're facilitating. There are a lot of approaches, and we're happy to help you with as much structure as possible, but we also don't want to limit you.
Absolutely. For the sake of time, we were budgeted 9 to 10, and I'm personally am willing to stay a little bit and chat if you guys have more questions, but I want to get through a couple of last things, and we'll kind of loop back to that survey question that just flashed by. So kind of the next steps, Sam's going to be sending out the syllabus to all of you, or it may end up coming from the course directors to make sure it gets to every adult, but you'll receive the syllabus in a digital form. So we highly encourage you read it, especially, obviously look for the parts that are relevant to you, what your job description is. If you're responsible for a Scoutmaster forum, checking those out. But we highly encourage reading the whole thing. It's got a lot of good information. And I promise it's a little bit of an easier read than the NYLT syllabus, so that's something to look forward to. And then also, your Scoutmasters are going to be communicating with you what the Scoutmaster Forum assignments are. So, if you're responsible for a staff development Scoutmaster Forum or one of the ones during the week of program, they're going to be letting you know those soon. So when you do receive those, making sure you send some form of confirmation, make sure that we know that what your responsibilities are and that you're going to be working on preparing them. And then the thing I mentioned earlier that's not written here is we may be reaching out to you in the next couple of weeks about engaging a little bit in the youth staff's pre-course development and kind of all the development that they're doing. And details will come about that. Unfortunately, right now, I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, or I'd like to give you more information. But we'll definitely be reaching out because we're always looking for ways to kind of incorporate the adults a little bit more into the staff development, and because it kind of just helps everyone grow a little more, getting the adult perspective, adults getting to see the youth perspective. Everyone kind of gets a lot out of that. And that's kind of it in terms of what we had for content for the presentation. We had a survey question here. It's, what can we do to help you succeed? But at this point, we're definitely willing to kind of take any general questions you've had, which hopefully you feel we've been all right about as you've kind of been posting them as we're going. But we're kind of done in terms of what we wanted to make sure we said. So now we want to take an opportunity to kind of answer questions that you may have. And that also kind of formally ends this. So, if we all lead very busy lives, so if you got something going on, that's it. And we're not going to be telling you anything else that we kind of plan from our perspective. But you do have more questions. We'll definitely be happy to answer those.
And we put them up at the beginning. We'll make sure they're included in our email out to everybody. But John and I both are willing to share our personal cell phone numbers and our academy emails and to be available through either of those mediums.
Absolutely. I'll switch to that while we're kind of chatting here. And that way, if anyone needs to take it down and didn't get an opportunity to, it'll be there for them.
I also would urge anyone who's thinking about recruitment. We're having a really good conversation in the chat about making sure that information on Academy gets to the right people. To reach out to Logan Eckerd, I will put his email in the chat. He's the person who's running our campaign to get sort of all of our course details in front of councils, and he's a really good person. If you have ideas about how we might better communicate, he's a great person to give that feedback to.
Absolutely. I think I can add something here that's kind of just some text. What's Logan's email? Logan.eckerd?
Yep, at nylt-leadershipacademy.org.
Select font. We want it to be. That's fine, but how do I?
Hey, John, while we're waiting for people's questions to come in, if they have them, what did one fish in a tank say to the other?
I don't know.
You man the guns, I'll drive.
I see what you did there. So we'll switch to black. Okay. There we go. So I've got Logan's email at the bottom there. I'll try to make it a little larger. I'm not really sure how big it is. Make it 48.
He's also a great place if you take pictures this summer and you want to make sure that they get out to the world at large. Logan runs our social media along with me and a couple other people, but he's a great person to send things to if you want to get them out. If you've got good pictures, great place to go.
Absolutely. Logan's kind of our go-to guy for a lot of things. As you may find out over time, we might refer you to him a lot for what may be seemingly unrelated things, but he's really awesome and handles a lot of things for us.
Elaine is asking a great question, and the answer that we're going to give you is different than the answer we might give you like 2 years ago.
Absolutely.
So it used to be that our ASM training happened sort of separately from our patrol mentor training. But we've worked really hard to streamline our ASM and PM training into the same process. So we train our patrol mentors. We have them do presentations to practice. We have them go through the course. We have them practice flags. We have them think about what their daily life looks like. We have them think about evaluation. And we've really worked to have assistant scoutmasters do that side by side with them now. And so your training will be side by side with the patrol mentors, really going through what does the course look like, practicing evaluation, helping evaluate presentations, helping work with PMs in developing sort of course culture and things like that. So you should expect that you're going to work with your youth counterparts extensively throughout that training process.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of reasons that we made it super ingrained, or super combined rather. One of them is that you end up doing a lot of interaction with the ASPLs and the patrol mentors throughout the course, and we wanted to try and build those relationships a little earlier on than just the first day of the program. So there's the aspect of you're starting to get to know them, building that relationship early on. There's also the aspect of there's so much that each group can learn from each other, especially in kind of that super reflective environment that our pre-course turns out to be. There's different modes of reflection, there's different perspectives on each reflection, and being able to communicate about that is a great skill for both parties to develop, and being able to hear the other side is of benefit to both the youth and adults. So that's also something that we'll be looking for a lot of feedback on, since we only did it for the first time last year, and that was only in the St. Louis location where I was. But it's something we're kind of rolling out to all the courses. So we'd love to, if you end up with feedback on kind of what that looks like, how it feels as an adult in that situation, we'd definitely love to hear that, since we're always looking at kind of growing and expanding how we're kind of handling that sort of thing.
I also think that the added benefit here is that when we were conducting those trainings separately, it didn't give time for the youth adult communication pipeline to develop. And there's going to be hiccups in that development. That's just, it's going to happen in any team. We got to move through storming. And so if we started that communication on Sunday when course started, then by Thursday we were getting through storming, but that's a little late for the course at large. So part of the goal is that we want to work on that communication pipeline, and we want to work on the ways that we're communicating before we ever start having participants on course. And so one of the things that I think was really effective was that adults and youth worked out the hiccups in how they were going to interact in the several days before course. So by the time we hit Sunday, we knew how that was going to go. And that was a huge benefit to everybody involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, hopefully you feel like that answered your question, Elaine. Last year's collaborative development at DC was vastly improved over previous years. That's awesome to hear, Jeff. And honestly, it's going to feel even, hopefully you feel like it's even more improved this year, but it's definitely going to feel even more different. Since even what we did in DC last year wasn't quite what we tried to implement in St. Louis. So I'd also kind of love to hear your over time perspective, once we've gone through this year, what you noticed compared to last year, and being a person that's been around what happened in the years before that, since there's definitely been a build up over the last few years of us trying to really improve this specific component of the course. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about what your thoughts are there.
I will say I've been grateful that everybody has engaged with us on a national level. As we've grown the course, and as we're going to continue to grow into more locations and more weeks and more people, hopefully, it can be difficult to get everyone on the same page. And having this opportunity to talk to everyone and answer questions and not triangulate by having someone email me or call me because I'm the person who might know the answer to your question that you had last week has been really, really useful, getting everybody kind of in a streamlined communication pipeline. And we're going to continue to work on that. We really want to make sure that everybody has a direct line to national program, because that way we're all working off the same playbook. And that's incredibly important to us.
Absolutely.
Well, if there are no other urgent questions, I'll give people about 30 seconds to speak now or hold their peace. John and I think, would benefit from both bed, and I have a 2-month-old to go take care of and put to sleep. So I'm working on that. Deborah does mention that's super great that this is the 100-year anniversary of the partnership between the BSA and the American Legion, and our DC campus at an American Legion camp. So we should think about something to do. I don't have an idea right now, but we should brainstorm about that.
Absolutely, could be beneficial to maybe do some form of like service project with the camp more than what we might normally do. Because the American Legion camp has been fantastic to us, so we definitely would hope to give back a little bit. So that's maybe one way we could consider doing that. But that's a great idea, Deborah. We should definitely look into that more. And we're both glad that you felt like this forum has been helpful, and we're glad you were able to be here with us. So at this point, I think we're going to call it. I'll be around in the chat for a little while, so if you do have any further questions, I may not be able to verbally give you a response, but I'll definitely be able to type one. And again, we have our contact information on here. The cell phone number or the phone numbers on here are our cell phones. So for both of us, you could either text or call us with any questions you have, and also emails. We both check those very frequently, so feel free to reach out to us about anything. We're here to answer questions and be a resource. So thanks for coming, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.